During this video, we'll go over how to determine the percent composition of an element within a compound. So we're going to use a formula that we have here. So you have this. If I want to determine the percent composition of an element in a compound, what I'll do is I'll divide the mass of the element that I want to determine over the molar mass of the compound, and multiply times 100%. Why do we do this? Why do we multiply times 100%? When we divide the mass of the element by the molar mass of the compound, you're going to get a fractional number. And we report percent in whole numbers and fractions. So you multiply times 100% to get that composition. So let's look at a problem. So what is the percent composition of copper sulfide? In this case, we will find the percent composition of both the copper and the sulfur. And the formula for copper sulfate is Cu2S. So there's two coppers and one sulfur. So we need to find the formula mass. So first, we will look at copper. The atomic mass of copper is 63.55. That's going to be grams per mole. There's two copper atoms, so we're going to add those together. So we get a total of 127.10. Next, we'll determine the mass of the sulfur in the molecule. So there's a single sulfur atom, and its atomic mass is 32.07. Now what we need to do is we need to add them together to get the formula mass, and this is going to be in grams per mole. So you have 127 grams per mole for the copper, and I'm going to add that to the 32.07 grams per mole for my sulfur, and it's going to be a total of 159.17 grams per mole. Now that I've determined the formula mass, I can now divide the total mass of my sample. So what that means is that this 127 grams, you're going to have 127 grams per 1 mole of that sample, and that's going to be 127 grams of the copper, and I'm going to divide that by the total mass, the molar mass of my compound, which is 159.17, and then multiply times 100%. So let's look at that again. So the 127.10, that's going to be the mass, if I have 1 mole of this compound, of the copper. And the 159.17, this is going to be the total mass of 1 mole of that compound, so the copper sulfide. When I divide that 127.10 by 159.17, I'm going to get 0.7985. That's not percent yet. That's just a fraction that 127.10 is of the whole compound. Now I'm going to multiply that times 100%. Then the result is 79.85%. So if I have a copper sulfide, it's always going to be 79.85% copper. It doesn't matter the size of the sample, it's always going to be 79.85%. Now we can determine the percent composition of sulfur. So I'm going to put the mass of the sulfur over the formula mass for copper sulfide. So we said that there's 32.07 grams per mole. So that's going to be over 159.17 grams per mole, and multiply times 100%. If I divide 32.07 by 159.17, I'm going to get 0.2015. So that's not a percent yet, That's just our fraction of 32.07 of 159.17. I need to now multiply times 100%. When I do that, I get 20.15%. So we now know that copper makes up 79.85% of copper sulfide, and sulfur makes up 20% of copper sulfide, 20.15%. And I can determine whether my math is correct because if I add these up, I should come up to 100%. So any sample, whether I have one molecule or I have 100 kilograms of copper sulfide, Cu2S, it's always going to be 79.85% copper and always 20.15% sulfur. Doesn't matter the size of the sample. Well, again, whether it's one molecule or whether it's 100 kilograms, it's going to be the same. All right, thank you for watching.